one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Are there any? Seeing none, we'll move on to approve the December 8th county board meeting minutes.
Move approval, Anderson.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are passed. And we have the special session board meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second, Anderson.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. County board agenda.
Mr.
Changes or adjustments?
Mr. Chair, there is one addition. It's approving the LELS 46 contract for 2023 through 2025, and that would be consent agenda item 11.
The motion for approval with the addition to the consent agenda.
So moved, Betcher.
Second, Gressett.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda. So we have 11 items. Is there any questions or concerns with any of them?
I'd move approval of all 11, but just for clarification, LELS 46 is which? Who's in that group?
It's the sergeant group. Okay.
Sergeants and dispatchers?
Sergeants of the dispatchers and detention center.
Okay, thank you. I looked, but I couldn't quite figure out which one it was. And we do it by number, but some way I'd like to know which group it is we're actually settling with.
I will second that motion. So got approval for the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. County ditch documents. Morning.
Good morning.
So the total proposed assessment to go on for the ditch is $660,797. This is approximately $219,000 or 25% less than the total estimated cost of the three projects, which was approximately $880,000. The non-government owned parcel with the highest assessment is approximately $48,000, while the lowest is just about $1. The average assessment, excluding parcels less than $500 or anything owned by the government, is about $18,500. Additionally, $55,743.14 of damages will be paid out to certain landowners that were negatively impacted by the projects. These payments are compensation for the acquisition of the easement of one rod of grass buffer strip, as well as temporary damages for the project area. Calculations of these damages were provided by the viewers and were part of the viewers report previously approved by the board. These damages are required to be paid by the ditch fund. In the future, there will also need to be ongoing assessments for minor maintenance and repairs of the ditch, such as spraying for weeds or removal of trees. The timing on these assessments really just depends on multiple factors, such as the amount of prepayments we receive or the cost of these repairs, as well as the interest rate or the payment terms approved by the board. This assessment can go up to 20 years, but not exceed that. Based on discussions with our attorney, typically for projects of this size, the assessment term would be about 10 years. The interest rate that we can charge is also limited by statute. The current limit is 4%. I ran various scenarios under with different factors at interest rates of 2%, 3%, and 4%. All those are viable. Realistically, we can charge 3% and the ditch fund will be okay, so there's no need to charge 4%. If we do charge less than 3%, it'll impact the flexibility that the ditch fund will have. Most likely, we would need to start those additional assessments earlier on as well. I have attached to this memo a report showing the assessment by parcel as well as the damages that those specific landowners will receive. So the staff recommends that the board approve the assessment of $660,797 related to the ditch repair of Branch B improvement and the main ditch, as well as the damage payments of $55,743.14. Staff also recommends the assessment be paid in 10 annual installments with an interest rate of 3% and an interest accrual date of January 1st, 2023.
Commissioner, I also want to make a point that I had mistakenly put the entire cost of the culvert onto the township. They had like a 96-foot culvert, and I got new numbers back and clarified that they only got charged for 70 feet of that instead of the 96 feet. And then part of the removal costs. So that's why their number did come down.
And you got a final number to the township? that
I
we're
haven't
happy
sent
with
it to
that,
the
or that-
township yet. Haven't sent to the township yet. I just had gotten that and was putting that together. So their number did come down closer to what was.
Yeah, I've talked to him already.
And that is reflected on the second
Yeah.
page of the report.
Okay. And that was one of the things we're gonna discuss today, was figure out what the township was content with there, which Todd, you had communicated with them and they're
They're not happy with it.
still not happy, but it's a little cheaper, but it's.
Well, it's, part of it is we went off of what Otterness suggested, and I totally understand the bids came different. One contractor has less on the road, more on the landowners, one contractor in. So we do have to go with the overall lowest bid, which just makes sense. And, I think the township got in that situation, and, would I like, Otterness to back that up a little bit, but I did mention it to him. Apparently he hasn't stepped forward to, back up his estimate. So
He did come, it is closer to what his estimate was if you're just talking the culvert itself. But if you're talking the removal and the galvanized apron, those costs were, I don't know if that was in the estimate that we gave.
I would assume it would be. Why would he not?
I'm not sure.
It's just, there's just frustration here, and yeah, I don't know what a solution is. I certainly don't want to go back on, we can't pay anything as the county, so I don't want that to go back on the other landowners and spread it out even further. So I think it's going to, frustrating, but I think it's gonna be where it's at.
It also seems like we have to look at how we communicated that information. And it reminded me a bit when you get a bill from a medical procedure, you think you have the whole bill, and then there's another one from the anesthesiologist and the surgeon in the hospital.
Mhm.
And I think that the landowners, at least that was my impression, that they didn't understand the issue of the two pieces. And I also think they didn't understand when you guys were saying per $100,000. And I think somehow we need to bold it, red it, whatever, so it's not a surprise. People cope better if they know than if suddenly their bill is double what they expect it to be.
I understand that, and we did try to have as many informational meetings as we could. We were under constraints that I couldn't
Yes.
have it in person, which always made it even worse because that was difficult to communicate with, especially people who don't have access to
Yes, of course.
that. So, but I know a number of the landowners did contact the viewers and get what their questions were to those guys who actually answered the questions for them. I know they had a lot of communication back and
Sure.
forth.
So the people
But
who
not all
were
of them,
assertive about it found
Yeah.
out, and those who weren't got a surprise that they weren't
I
expecting.
believe so.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to approve the assessment.
So these two are added together, the 660 and the 55.7? Or the 55.7 is already in the 660?
It's already in there. The assessment itself is that 660, the 57 or the 55,000. That is just it's a separate number. Those are damages payments that are going to be paid to certain specific landowners for that permanent easement.
And that will happen, we have to wait the 30 days after you did your approval last meeting. We'll wait the 30 days to see if anything has been objected to, and then the auditor's office will be their next communication, where they'll send them a letter and tell them what the fees are, what your decision will be, and then work on cutting checks.
Was there any concern? I mean, we probably don't have much of an issue too amongst, again, a large majority of this fell onto three landowners. I mean, and they were 3% interest, or whether they pay it up front or do your communication. I mean, they were,
Yeah, I don't
very
know.
much we can do
Yeah.
either way, so. it is
You know,
what it is.
I think the things that I heard is they weren't gonna pay it, but I think they realized that they have to pay it. So,
Or they're in tax foreclosure.
right, there was frustration there. And like I said, it was poor communication or didn't understand it, didn't read it right, didn't look at their whole picture. So,
And
Yep.
not having the agricultural background, I don't know the answer to this question, but I think it was done so their farmland would be more productive.
correct.
And so the idea would be that they would recoup, hopefully, what they put in and more.
Right. And they
over
have been
time.
using that ditch for 70 years.
Yeah.
So,
So,
With minimal investment.
I did have a conversation with one of the gentlemen that was here at the last meeting, and I think it helps adding that damages column on there,
I see.
because they'll be getting some money back, and it's not the big chunk that they initially thought. And all that information was communicated in the letters that they did get from the viewers.
Mhm.
So it's just, part of this too is it's taken, it was 2 construction seasons.
Mhm.
We didn't bill them for the first construction season because we waited till the entire project was done.
I understand that.
Okay, do we have a motion to move ahead and approve the assessments and the damage payments?
So are we actually moving the resolution? Is that what
We are
we're
hoping.
moving?
There is a resolution for this as well, yes.
I move forward the resolution as presented.
I'll second. Is there any further discussion?
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
So the county borrowed money to the ditch fund, and that was at 2% interest,
It's at 1.5% interest.
1.5% interest. And that's getting paid back as this gets paid back?
That's the idea, yes.
Until our funds are put back into the county.
Yes, as we receive these proceeds from this assessment, then we'll be paying back that loan from the general fund over time, over the next 10 years.
Commissioner, I think we need to do a roll call again.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll now do a roll call vote. State your name and commissioners.
Commissioner Betcher, aye.
Commissioner Majerus, aye.
Commissioner Flanders, aye.
Commissioner Anderson, aye.
Commissioner Gressett, aye.
Anybody opposed? Nobody's left, so
Thank you.
we're approved, so.
Thank you. Thanks.
God.
So you got a plat for us to review.
All right, so the first one here is the GESME 3rd edition in Cannon Falls Township. This one is platted due to minimum lot size requirements, and combining platted land with unplatted land means you have to plat to combine those properties. Planning Commission has recommended the county board approve this plat request.
Questions from the board or a motion for approval?
Do we have to have a public hearing on this?
No.
Nope, okay. I'd move approval.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Thank you.
And I've got another one
Yes, you do.
here. This is in Zumbrota Township, creating 4 lots out of 1 existing parcel, which also requires a formal plat. The Planning Commission considered this and has also recommended the county board approve this plat for the Kavalvag addition.
Questions on that one?
This one was brought up for, there's already housing density is full, so there's no more houses available. There is also always that conservation district option, but apparently Zumbrota Township, I don't believe, is in favor of that at this time. So, but basically it's sold off for recreational land. That's why they parceled it off.
I see. Hunting and
Hunting.
Move to approve.
I will second.
Just a comment, I had discussions with one of the members of the Goodhue Pioneer Trail, because if you see on the plat map, there is a easement that Minnesota has for the Goodhue Pioneer Trail to go through that property. right along the edge to the biggest block. That is already purchased and already in place. So this will not affect that. They can still do it, except by splitting it, and they got some of that split going right down the middle of that trail. It's gonna be in a couple different parcels. It would have been a lot easier if they'd have just left it in one parcel, but, you know, they can choose how they want to do that. And it does, I'll just, from my perspective, it really concerns me what is happening with some of these splits, because especially this platting. The number 3 parcel has 13 corners in it. And it's 9 acres. And going forward, surveyors are gonna have a nightmare knowing boundary lines. I know that right now there's pins at every spot around that, but it is just, it bothers me that stuff gets split like this. I'm gonna vote to approve it because I have nothing to not approve it by, but I really am concerned going forward, the shapes that we're making out there. It's hard enough when they're square.
I know.
It's impossible when they're like
The
this.
puzzle piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a specific reason, obviously, that they're doing it.
Yes.
They're
It's typically,
carving out every inch of
Yep.
cropland
Yep.
Yep.
from every inch of
Woodland.
wasteland or forest. Yes. And I get it. And it makes, you know, from a one perspective, it makes sense. From a going forward 20 years from now, it will be extremely difficult. And we've done it for it's happened for a long time. The shape of parcels get really,
we've seen that change over the last few years. I like straight lines. I like to be able to see one end to the other.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what they're doing. They're going around the cropland.
But technically, the task in the future for anything is all borne by the owners of the parcel. The county doesn't have to, we're not out surveying it.
Nope, nope.
Anything, it's all individual. Somebody wants to resurvey, re-identify the corners and do what it is. It's all borne by the
Yeah, we try
individual
to,
parcel owners, so.
we try to
100 years
inform
from
them
now,
about
they'll
that.
be
If they, you know, as things get more expensive and they start creeping in and cutting more of the woods lands out, then they start having some issues with where's the line.
When we divide something up like this, does it have to be professionally surveyed?
Absolutely. Law.
Because it comes with a new description.
Yep.
Plan. I mean,
It's part of the,
have fun reading the description for that one.
Well, yeah.
it's part of being a professional land surveyor. They have to be the ones to do the drawing and do the descriptions.
and I know it falls back on the owner. You know, the surveying going forward falls back on the owner. But don't think that the county doesn't end up answering a ton of questions.
Yeah.
Why?
There's a lot of property
do.
creep.
We do.
So,
I would assume there's no legal basis to require straight lines.
no,
Yeah.
no, people can
They
draw it
can,
up any way they want.
any way they want to.
We-
Well, they're
need-
straight.
Yeah.
Just
Just-
only so long.
Yeah.
I suppose that's true.
It just concerns me, and I just had to voice that.
All right, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I-
Opposed? Thank you. Court Services Director report.
Good morning.
Right.
Funding for community supervision or probation has been lacking for many years over most of my career. We've been fighting for our 50% reimbursement to the county as is stated in statute. That hasn't been the case. The last time the county received, or any of our counties received 50% was 1996. So things have been, like I say, really a struggle. And every year we go back to the legislature and we're competing. All the three probation delivery systems are competing for that same funding. And it just hasn't been very, very productive. So this past year, about a year and a half ago, through the Council of State Governments, there is the Justice Reinvestment Initiative begun. and which really has then formed this community supervision work group, which includes AMC, Minnesota Association of County Probation Officers, Community Corrections Act counties, and the Department of Corrections. So they've been working together rather than kind of, again, competing for funding. And they've really come a long way in advancing this. And I'm confident finally that something really will come out of this for adequate funding, equitable across all 3 probation delivery systems. So what it will be, what we're hoping to accomplish is develop a formula, probation funding formula, and also evidence-based practices supervision standards. So all counties, no matter what delivery system it is, the delivery system is chosen based on what works best for their county, like we've got here. And so the standards will be the same across all counties. And I think that's only a big plus also. So I bring this resolution before the board today, on behalf of the Minnesota or Association of Minnesota Counties and those other probation groups that I mentioned, and ask that you will support this for funding or for the following recommendations of the community service or community supervision work group, and for the funding formula and supervision standards.
Okay, any questions or motion for approval?
I know Commissioner Swanson from Roseville County has been just a champion working on this as policy chair for public safety for quite a few years and being involved in that. And
Yes, he is.
we hear about it almost every meeting at AMC,
Okay.
what an issue this is. And this is a step forward, it's unfortunate that the state uses all the excuses in the world not to actually fund something that's in state statute.
Mhm.
It just blows my mind when they come in and say that no, it's the governor's fault, it's this person's fault, it's that person. Nope, the legislature sets the budget. The legislature can make sure that they fund things that are in state statute to be funded and do it. And they weasel around this one, and it just drives me crazy. They just get out of doing what somebody put in statute. If you don't like the statute, change the damn statute. If you really don't want to fund it, just change the statute to not fund it. But they aren't going to do that because they really want to fund it, but they just won't put the dollars forward. I would move this resolution forward. The work group has done a tremendous lift in getting this in front of a lot of legislators, and hopefully it will
Yes, it
make
has.
some progress. I think part of it was in the tax bill that got left on the table
Yes,
last
it
year.
was. It was,
Yeah.
and it just stalled out.
That,
So
that everybody walked away from. And they had it. They could have gotten it
I know.
done, along with a lot of other things in that tax bill.
Yeah.
And they just walked away from it. It's just unfortunate that they choose to do it that way. So I will move this forward.
Second?
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
well, thank you.
Oh, Mark, thank you.
Finance Director's report.
Morning.
Good morning. So the next one up is to discuss the fund balance designations for year end 2022. So on the second page, you'll find the projected fund balance commitments as of December 31st for all funds. All 2022 expenditures have been made in accordance with the board approved commitments in place as of year end 2021. There are no new commitments for new purposes being proposed for this year end. Once the approvals are obtained, the funds must be spent for their stated purpose until such time that all funds are used or a majority of the board makes a decision to alter that commitment. The county is required to record fund balances in each of the following categories. There's non-spendable, which are your inventory and prepaid expenses. Restricted are established by external restrictions, including statutes, grants, etc. And then committed and assigned. Committed, as a reminder, are board designated. Once those are created by majority, they must be spent that way. And then assigned are determined by county management. Any changes to committed fund balances must be approved by the board on or before December 31st, 2022. With that being said, staff recommends the board approve the 2022 fund balance commitments as outlined for December 31st, 2022.
Go ahead.
The one in there that we really need to talk about is the tax forfeited property funding, and Lisa's gonna kind of give us an update where we're at with the cleanup out in Stanton, and that fund will be depleted if we don't make some adjustments there. So we need to make an adjustment to make sure we don't deplete that fund and that we leave a few dollars going forward in that fund for other projects we may have. So if you could kind of bring us up to speed where we're at with that.
I will. So we did hire somebody to come out and clean up the property on Stanton, in Stanton Township, which we've known has been an issue for 20 some years. They did complete that just in the nick of time before the snow. And we did find a lot of interesting things for wells we had to seal, and a lot of stuff had to go. So the rough estimate from the contractor is going to be $125,000 for that bill. They had probably about 90 some dumpsters.
90
That's
dumpsters.
Yeah, 70,
Oh my God.
roughly, from what he remembered, he's bringing receipts in, but 70 of them plus 4 iron plus 16 side dumps, which is almost like 2 dumpsters.
That was interior and exterior?
Yes, it is now flat and filled and ready to go through the process of selling. We have had a couple.
The building is still there?
No, the buildings all had to go.
It's level.
We have had some phone calls of interest to purchase the land, but that'll be another process. And then hopefully with whatever we get from that, we can put back into this fund. And it won't recover this point over the last 20 some years, the number of times we've cleaned up is about $250,000.
So to make sure we end up with some dollars in there, what would you recommend we transfer another 40,000 into that fund?
So we have about 115,000 as of right now. If this one is 125, we do have another property that we just took down in the city of Goodhue. That one, we've got about $11,000 into it, but upon sale, we should recover some money. So I don't know if there's going to be any additional bills on the Nelson's property. I know those are
I'm hoping this is it.
tentative. I would say that if we put at a minimum of $50,000 additional funds, or committed an additional $50,000, that should get us through these current projects. One of the difficult things with this fund, though, is it's unpredictable. We don't know if we're going to have to knock down some additional houses this upcoming year or not. And we don't know if upon sale of these properties, if we're going to actually make money or not. When we sell a property and we make money on it, it goes back into this fund, but a lot of times we lose money on the deal.
And if we don't spend it and the fund's bigger than we want it, we can take dollars out of it next year when we do this same process. So I would.
Do you need to do that now to move this money now, or is it something we do at the beginning of the year?
If you make this commitment now, if the board decides by majority vote to change that, that will be determined right now, and then we'd be fine for year end. It doesn't need to come back at a separate meeting.
Okay, so we can make the change now to move $50,000. So, and you know what fund you want to move it out of?
It would come out of unassigned fund
Unassigned
balance.
fund. Perfect. Okay. Go ahead.
Lisa, the $125,000 bill, what would be a ballpark of what the land could sell for? I'm assuming not close to 125,000.
Probably not. I think we'd have to talk to the assessors. You know, originally we had asked what would it be if buildings were there, but we had concerns about people staying in buildings.
Right.
And so what it would be, you know, as empty lot. I think it's currently zoned as R1, so it could be housing. So we'll have to go back and ask the assessors to reevaluate it now that it's cleaned up and they have a better idea. They can see the property. So,
And it's gotta be compatible with Stanton's zoning ordinance and the county zoning ordinance too.
Would there be
So I
like,
think we gotta figure out what that all is.
would it be like one house lot, two house, three house?
it could be, it depends on Stanton's, I don't know what their minimum was on R1 residential. It could be, minimum one, probably two, depending if we combine the parcels together. Because there are a number of different parcels there. So we can work with the township. I'm sure they're very happy. So.
Yeah, I think that's 6 months away, or at least if not 9 months away, just to get through and figure out what's the best configuration to get the most housing. Because quite frankly, that's all that can be used for in that little hamlet or town of Stanton is housing. Not farmable, it's not, yeah, so.
Thank you.
All right, so any other specific questions? We have a motion to change.
I would move to approve the list as presented with the addition of adding 50,000 to the tax forfeited property funding.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're down to Public Works.
I think this was actually supposed to be on the consent agenda, because I just pulled up his report.
Yep.
I think you just submitted it to the wrong.
But it wasn't on the consent agenda.
No.
Okay. So is it pretty straightforward that we can make a motion? Anybody have,
I think so.
I think this has all been probably established prior.
I'll make a motion to pass the
We
attached
need to
resolution.
table it to clarify. Greg's not here.
I think he thought it was consent agenda item, so,
Report was says consent agenda, but.
I mean, if there was actually any type of questions, I'll step back and call him, but,
Okay.
otherwise, I think just approve it.
So you made a motion. You're still content with it?
Yes, I'm content with that.
Second?
Motion and second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I think one thing that, as I've read that and as I understand it, we're not actually connecting 14 all the way to 24 because there's a township section in there. The purple section, I think, is township. And we may come back and do that later. Because it talks about going to 63rd Avenue, not going to County 24.
Jess Greenwood is online here too, if there's any questions for him, so.
We approved it. I guess if we have
Yeah.
more questions.
That's going to come back. I just think it's going to come back to finish it up once we get that far.
All right, county administrators report.
Okay, I'll take the first item and then Andrew's going to take the second item. I'd like to introduce Mary Preby today. If you want to come up and just say a few words, Mary. Mary's the third HR manager that we've got hired in the new structure, so want to welcome her to Goodhue County. It's officially her second day today, so good news is she came back today.
Good morning.
Yes, I
Mary,
did.
if you just want to say a few words about your background and stuff.
I'm originally from the Wausau, Wisconsin area. I've been in this area about 3 years now. I have over 20 years of HR experience, more years than that in benefits as well. I have a bachelor's, a master's, and a couple of certifications in HR, and I am very grateful to be here at Goodhue County.
Welcome.
Very good,
Welcome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Adrian Binder.
She's going to read the whole thing.
I know, right? Look it. A little bit of work. Okay. On September 20th, 22, the county board set the preliminary levy at $43,055,665. As you know, the levy can be lower, not higher than that approved preliminary amount. Since that time, we've had numerous staff meetings. The county board has held a number of workshops, all to talk about options to reduce that levy. December 8th, the county board held the 2023 Truth and Taxation meeting. And following that meeting, we had our last budget workshop with the board. And one of the key items that we talked about at that workshop was the fact that we currently budget for 100% of our staffing costs, even though the last couple of years, we haven't been anywhere close to being fully staffed. So the idea came up that we take a percentage of that, we reduce it by a couple of percent and then use fund balance to offset that amount. That way, if we fill the positions, we don't use the fund balance, it doesn't really affect it. So the other item that was talked about at that workshop was the funding for the treatment court program. And I think at this time, we feel that there is a sufficient amount of funds available in that program. And moving down the road, we can take a look at if we want to, there's another grant that they will be applying for, or just talking with staff to determine what's a good amount to have in that account moving forward to help keep it going, but yet not continue to levy if it's not needed. So with those two reductions, the proposed final budget is $82,305,559 with a proposed levy of $42,020,645. This represents an increase in levy of $1,881,833, or roughly 4.69 over the approved 2022 levy. It also represents a decrease of 4.33% in the tax rate. And the proposed resolutions are included in the packet. And I guess if there's any questions.
Go ahead.
Did you have a chance to talk to Judge Bailey in
I
regards to
believe,
tax court?
I talked to Judge
what are-
Bailey and I talked with County Attorney Steve O'Keefe and that they're fine with it, not levying at this point, and then we'll revisit later at a later date what the appropriate time is to begin levying again.
Very good, thank you.
So those discussions can happen outside of
Anytime.
budget talks, just to kind of come up with what that level of funding needs to be, that balance needs to be.
Right.
I'd like to do that sooner rather than later before we get into the next budget cycle, just have those discussions and.
For sure.
Yeah. I would move approval of the levy as Andrea presented at 42 million eight.
Nope.
305.
No, $20,000. You say it again.
42
How
million,
many numbers?
20,645.
That's what I said.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. All right, budget is approved. All right, our two county board meeting of 2023.
Yes, by Minnesota statute, the county board needs to set the first meeting of the year. And it's to be held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in January. And next year, that would be January 3rd. Staff's recommendation is to hold our first meeting at January 3rd at 9 a.m.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You got a meeting date. And Semcra. Buffy? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Buffy Beranek, Executive Director of Semtra. Happy to be here. I won't reiterate everything Andrea said, but our levy was also approved in September. Again, can't go up, it can only go down. Our levy request is holding the same at $424,807. This is the second year of our budget cycle, and we did come in less than what we had initially planned. We had initially planned about a 2% increase or $8,000, and we came in at an increase of about $5,200. All the same funding categories as prior years and as presented in September. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'd just like to note that we did have some recent successes at SEMTRA in relation to Goodhue County. We were awarded the Cannon Falls Small Cities Grant, which is approximately 20 rehabs within the city of Cannon Falls. We already have a waiting list. Funds aren't released yet. Looking forward to that in probably March timeframe. We have 11 open small cities grants. So we're really busy in terms of preservation of housing right now. 3 open grants within Goodhue County, Pine Island, soon to be the Cannon Falls, and Goodhue Denison. So, any questions on budget or components of the budget?
No questions? Anybody care to make a motion to approve the levy from SEMTRA?
Move to approve. Flanders.
Second, Anderson.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, some for your information items, and then we're down to county claims.
Move approval.
Second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Bills are paid. County board committee reports.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Yesterday, the housing subcommittee met. And certainly in the Red Wing area, we have a lot going on. The Associated Bank building has been sold, and they're planning for 28 to 32 apartments there with retail on the first floor. They will be smaller units since they're going for so many, 28 to 32. The barber shop block in downtown Red Wing is going to turn into 36 units of an apartment. 5 additional units will be above the Hallstrom's flower shop. The hospital site up on 4th Street, somebody did have an option to buy, and the neighborhood is a tad on the hostile side about multi-family dwellings. They want single-family dwellings. Let's see, in Cannon Falls, the EDA purchased 40 acres across from the school, and they are going to build and sell those lots. The city will help with water and sewer, and they are going to put a tunnel under Highway 19 so kids can walk from that side of the street over to the school. And there was several more, but those are the biggest highlights, I think.
Is it the one you were talking about up by the hospital? Is that the one that Three Rivers is involved in?
You mean the 4th Street Hospital?
Here in Cannon here, or in Red Wing here.
Uh,
Three Rivers is talking about building one kind of right between Walmart and is it a
That's
pet
the
hospital or
new
something?
hospital site. She's referring to
That's
the,
different.
one of the old hospital sites,
Oh, you're talking about the old
The old
hospital.
hospital
Oh,
on
on
4th
Fourth Street.
Street.
Okay.
but not the old hospital.
Yeah, before the other old school, yes.
Because Three Rivers is working on one off of Tyler Road too.
Yes.
An apartment there.
Yep, and I think the city council is supposed to say yes or no on that in February.
Okay.
So a lot of housing going up in Red Wing area and Cannon Falls. And then there's 11 lots in Kenyon that are going to be up for sale, funded for Cannon Falls with deed monies. So a lot going on.
Thank you. Any other committee reports?
I have a question because there's a Hiawatha Valley RC&D Research and Development, which I've been a member of ever since I got on this board. We've functioned as multi-county around southeast Minnesota. RC&Ds started at the federal level. They were at the state level. There were districts for them all around the state of Minnesota. I think there's either 1 left or 2 left besides Hiawatha RC&D. We are going to disband. The grant funding system it just doesn't fit anymore. We can't seem to get projects off the ground. Our executive director is going to resign. He wanted to resign, and we're not going to go out and search for another one. So in January, there's going to be a meeting to dissolve. Problem is I can't make that meeting, so I'm wondering if someone else from the board, because we really should have someone from the county that actually votes at that to dissolve. Is there someone who could attend the meeting? I think it's January 23rd in the morning
Where?
in Rochester. I gotta double check which exact day that is, but someone needs to attend and I will not be available at all that day.
I would have to get back to you before I could volunteer.
You would,
And does it have to be a commissioner to vote?
well, it should be, we can designate someone, I think that.
Yeah, because if a commissioner can't, I mean, obviously we can have some board staff attend for you.
We know what day of the week it is.
Looks like a Monday.
And I think it's
23rd.
it's a Monday morning, 9 o'clock,
Mhm.
right next to the county offices down in, out by the RCTC. If someone can let me know, just so we get someone there. But we usually meet either quarterly if there's nothing going on, or every other month, but it's been kind of sporadic lately because of this, but there will be a few dollars there that will come back to the county as we disband with the fund balances.
And is there other assets that they have to worry about, or?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Nope. So just let me know if it works and I'll get you the information. And let Rod Peterson from Dodge County is the chair, so he'll be running that.
Any other reports? And we'll move on to any new or old business. Yeah, we'll move on to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.